Hi everyone, so welcome to the series of Indian polity that we were discussing, and in this series we already have delivered more than 65 of the lectures. We were already entered into last segment of Indian polity, and in last segment as well we already have delivered one chapter on political party. This is going to be second chapter on election. As far as talking about this election, when we were discussing this election commission, the election machinery, this chapter if I talk about will be divided into three verticals, and those three verticals will be this, where in the first vertical we will be discussing the basic information regarding the election. So the basic information and the election machinery, if you remember when we were discussing this constitutional body, as part of our discussion on constitutional body, there as well we already have discussed election commission as an institution. What is the job of, what is the role, how does the election commission function, what is the articles associated with this election commission. So all these articles, roles, mandate of the election commission, their structure we already have discussed there. If you remember the vertical hierarchy that we had created there, and we had discussed that at the top you do have this election commission of India, then you have this CEO, then we do had this DEO, right, then we had this ERO. All these things we already have discussed. As far as basic information is concerned, as part of our discussion on election commission as well, we had discussed the basic information as well. So as I already told you that this particular chapter will be divided into these three verticals, where we'll be discussing, or where we were supposed to discuss, this basic information, election machinery and the election process. So these two vertical has already been done, this election machinery and the basic information, as part of our discussion on election commission. So what we will be doing is that whatever aspects of the election that remains untouched, that could not be discussed into the election commission, because in Lakshmikant if you go, there is duplication between this election commission there as well. If I talk about the election vertical machinery, vertical administrative machinery that election commission has created for conducting the election. What vertical administrative machinery I am talking about? So vertical administrative machinery I am talking about this. So vertical administrative machinery, if you remember, if you are a regular viewer of this particular channel, you would already be knowing that this kind of structure we already had discussed into the election commission lectures as well. So when we already have discussed this vertical administrative structure into the election commission, there is no point of discussing the roles of this ECI, role of chief electoral officer, role of district electoral officer, role of this returning officer, all these things. So whatever things that could not, so for example the presiding in that vertical administrative structure that we discussed into the election commission, there we did not discuss the role of this presiding officer. There we did not discuss the observers role, right? This is the observers. So as part of election machinery we had discussed these administrative officials, but there we did not discuss this observer. So we'll be emphasizing on this observer. Similarly, when we'll be discussing the basic information, so whatever basic information that we already have discussed into the election commission, there again will not be emphasizing much, although we'll be discussing, means we'll be touching those areas as well briefly, but will not be emphasizing much. So these two factors, that is the basic information starting, that is dealing with article 324 to article 329, so those aspects will not be touching into the basic information as far as the election machinery is concerned. So there on the administrative official part will again not, we will be touching. It's not that we'll be completely ignoring that just because that we already have discussed, right? We'll be touching those area, but will not be emphasizing much. Here on the observer part, right, as part of election machinery will be, because election machinery has been divided, as you can see from the image itself, that this election machinery has been primarily divided into these two sub-categorization. That is, one on one side you have the administrative official, that vertical administrative structure, and then the observer. So we'll be discussing the observer's role, and then as far as this election process is concerned, right, how does it announcement from a major press conference, and then it ends with the election petition after the counting, after the winning of the candidate, after returning officer has announced that which candidate has actually won the election. Thereafter there is one more procedure, and if there is any doubt regarding the win or regarding the any kind of malpractices that winner candidate would have performed, then electors and the candidate who had contested the election, the defeated candidate, are given right that they can file election petition into the relevant high court, the state high court, challenging the election order. So thereafter the process of election will wrap up, right? So the election process, starting from this model code of conduct, or starting from that major press conference, till that election petition, right? We'll be discussing that. So here it is in this area, in this particular video, that we are going to emphasize, or we are going to spend much time. I hope you will have an idea that how we are going to cover this particular chapter, right? So this is going to be, if I talk about scope, the scope has already been discussed. That is the basic information regarding the election, administrative structure of the election commission, the two subcategorizations, right, and the election process. So it is here that we are going to spend time. These three vertical structure that had been put into the horizontal format has been put up into the vertical format as well, right? So I hope you will, by now at least, you would have an idea that what approach while teaching, and this is how you divide all of the chapter. Whenever you have any kind of lengthy chapter, you divide it, you break that particular chapter into parts and then try to study. Until and unless you have created a broad structure of a particular chapter, you won't be able, you will mess up the things, right? Just as soon as you have these 5 or 10 page chapters, there is tendency that you are going to mess up. So instead of messing that lengthy chapters, be it parliament, be it state legislature, or be it chapter like this, try to create structure, broad structure, try to have broad idea about that chapter, that what this chapter is going to talk about, and then get into the details, right? So as we already have divided this chapter into that, first basic information, then election machinery. As part of election machinery, these two bodies or these two institutions will be talking, and then the third vertical will be discussing the election process. So this is how you approach various chapter, be it in history, be it in environment, be it science, and be it any subject, be it economic. So any subject that has the chapter, right, you will have to divide that particular chapter into these kind of vertical, or you will have to fragment that chapter, and then you try to study, and that will make your job a lot easier, right? So with that instruction, let us enter into the core of this particular video, and let us start with the basic information. So see, although the basic information, as I already told you, has already been discussed, starting from Article 324. What is this bandwidth of Article 324 to Article 329 that deals with? So it deals with the election commission. If you remember, we already have discussed the election commission. So this is the bandwidth that is dealing with the role, responsibility, structure, their salary, their composition, everything, each and everything related with the election commission has been discussed in these 5 articles, that is Article 324 to Article 329. So that we are not delving into, right? Already covered into Election Commission of India's lecture. Few points that we did not discuss there, and that is new to this chapter, that here you do have. So see, who does have power to bring law or to enact law regulating these elections? So see, elections are generally conducted, as far if I talk about the election commission's role, election commission of India does conduct elections for, do you remember that? So it does conduct election for president, right? It does conduct election for vice president, it does conduct election for Lok Sabha, it does conduct election for the Rajya Sabha, it does conduct election for state legislature, right? So here right now in this chapter, we are not concerned about the election of president or election of vice president or the election of Rajya Sabha, right? We are more concerned about the election, how does election of the Lok Sabha and how does the election of state legislature is conducted. Now to regulate the way the election will be conducted, so to regulate the way the election of the Lok Sabha or state legislature will be conducted, it falls into the domain of the parliament, right? Parliament can bring up any law regulating the conducting of election of the parliament and the state legislature. Other aspect of the election as well, that how nomination will be filed, what will be the disqualification, what will be the qualification if you want to file as an MP, if you want to contest as a member of parliament of the Lok Sabha, what will be the qualification criteria, what will be the age criteria, what will be what you call this educational, if there is any educational criteria, right? So what will be the financial criteria, so all those things, how nomination will be. So all aspect of the election of the Lok Sabha and the state legislature can be regulated by the parliament by bringing up a law. If I talk about the qualification and disqualification norm, if you remember when we were discussing this parliament and when we were discussing the state legislature, the 2 articles that we had talked about, that is Article 102, not 102, but it was, yes, 102 and Article 191, right? So here this Article 102 talks about the grounds of disqualification. So these disqualification norm has been mentioned into the constitution, right? Grounds of disqualification for the state legislature has been talked in Article 191. Article 10 talks about grounds of disqualification for the member of parliament. Now, there are certain grounds that has been created by a law created by the parliament, and that is mentioned into the RPA, Representation of People Act 1950 and 1950. So these points we already have discussed. My main point of discussing these articles and these law is just to let you know that it is the parliament which can regulate any aspect of the election, right? How election will be conducted, qualification criteria, disqualification norms, nomination, all the aspects of the election can be regulated by a law by the parliament. Now, the question that arises that, okay, parliament does have power to regulate, again I am emphasizing that the parliament does have power to regulate the conduct of election for the Lok Sabha and the state legislature. Does state legislature also does have any power to regulate any kind of election or any kind of, so yes, there is some power that has been assigned to the various state legislature as well. So state legislature, of course, state legislature cannot bring a law to regulate the affairs or to regulate the conduct of election of the Lok Sabha, that is parliamentary election. But one power that has been given to the state legislature, that they can regulate the conduct of election to within their state. But that power is also constrained, and what that constrained power is, that if parliament has already made a law regarding the election to the state legislature, then the state legislature by bringing a law cannot override that, right? So suppose regarding the state legislature election, regarding the assembly election, right, regarding the state legislature election, suppose regarding the nomination or regarding the qualification criteria, parliament has already made a law that, okay, if a person wants to contest election of the state legislature or MLA, then this should be the qualification. Now, state legislature, just because they have been given power that they can regulate the conduct of their own state laws or state election laws, right, they cannot override this qualification criteria that has been brought up by a law by the parliament, right? So I hope you will have understood. So if there is any statement tomorrow that only parliament does have power to regulate the conduct of election of the state legislature, that statement, yes, parliament does have power to regulate all the affairs of the parliamentary election, but as far as the state legislature election is concerned, some amount of power has been given to the state legislatures as well, but state legislature by virtue of that power cannot override any aspect of conduct of election, right, on which parliament has already created a law. So these are the 2 points, that parliament does have power to regulate both parliamentary as well as election of the state legislature. What aspect of the elections, right, we already have discussed: nomination, qualification, disqualification, the conduct of elections, all those aspects can be on all these aspects parliament can create the law. Similarly, state legislature can also regulate election of the state legislature on the area which remains untouched by parliamentary laws. Then it is talking about, the third point is talking about the role of delimitation commission. This role of delimitation commission we already have discussed into the parliamentary lecture and the election commission as well, but one aspect of the role of delimitation commission we did not discuss, and that I am discussing here. So delimitation commission does have power that it can reserve the constituency. So do you remember there are 84 seats that is reserved into the Lok Sabha election for SC community, 84 seats, right, and then 47 seats is for ST community. Now, who is going to decide? See, these seats, the number of seats does not remain, this number of seats will remain fixed, but which 84 seats will be reserved, that does not remain fixed. It keeps on rotating. Every time you will have a delimitation commission that is instituted, delimitation commission does have power, and it is the power of delimitation commission that it can decide that which 84 seats is going to be reserved for SC, right? Whenever they look at the population profile, right, and depending on the increase or the decrease of population of SC community in various constituencies, they are going to decide. So suppose these 5 seats, the 5 seats in Gujarat were being dominated, any 5 parliamentary constituency were being dominated by the SC constituency, but in last 5 years there has been migration, and from those 5 constituency, right, those SC community has shifted to some other state or some other district. So when delimitation commission next time will be sitting, right, they will be removing these 5 parliamentary constituency from that reserve list, and they'll be putting another 5 seats, right. Number of seats is going to remain fixed, and why and until what, until which year, right, we already have discussed into the parliamentary lecture, right. So until which year it is this reservation will remain in operation. So we already have discussed that by 104th constitutional amendment it is till 2030, right, it is going to remain in operation, this political representation. So it is the power of delimitation commission. What other power that delimitation commission does have? So it can create those boundaries, right, it can redraw the boundaries of these parliamentary constituency and assembly constituency. Now to bring these orders or these suggestions into effect, it is not the whatever suggestion that delimited or whatever idea in regards to this readjustment of the parliamentary or assembly constituency does this delimitation commission does have, right, this own institution, and this institution that is this commission, that is delimitation commission, is a very powerful body, right. So they to bring all these things to for the readjustment of these parliamentary constituency and assembly constituency, to bring these orders or to bring these ideas into effect, they are going to, this commission is going to come up with own law, right. It need not to go to the Lok Sabha, it need not to go to any state legislature to bring these readjustment into effect, and whatever law that they will be bringing, it is just for a formality sake, it will be presented into the parliament, but parliament, either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, does not have power to modify whatever suggestion or whatever law that they have come up with regarding the readjustment. Parliament does not have power, that powerful this commission is, right. So law delimiting constituency made by delimitation commission cannot be, and this cannot be challenged into any court as well, right. Whatever orders or whatever law that they have come up with this delimitation commission, that is going to be full and final. So two things about the delimitation commission that we learned, that Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, whatever law that this delimitation commission has brought, neither Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha has any power to modify, although again I am pointing out that whatever law that they are bringing, that will be presented for sake of formality into the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, the way Rajya Sabha does not have any power in regard to the money bill except discussing it, right. It cannot modify, maximum it can suggest Lok Sabha or it can urge Lok Sabha to modify it, but it cannot on its own. It similar power, this delimit or similar disability has been imposed on both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in regards to the law that has been brought up by the delimitation commission in aspect of readjustment of the parliamentary constituency or assembly constituency, right. So that powerful. And the second aspect that we study, or the second part of this delimitation commission that we studied, that is that its law cannot be challenged in any court, right. So I hope this third point as well you will have an idea on. And this election petition, although we have discussed this, what is this election petition? So election petition is nothing but it is a way, it is a judicial terminology, and it is through only this election petition that the election of any MLA or election of any MP can be challenged into relevant high court, right. So parliament and assembly election can be challenged into high court only by way of a normal suit cannot be filed, even if an elector is not satisfied. If an elector into a particular constituency feels that whatever MLA that has been declared as a winner, or whatever MP that has been declared as winner by returning officer, he during the election he or she indulged into any kind of malpractice, or if he has violated any kind of law and he should be punished or his candidature should be cancelled, then you cannot go to the high court or local court or supreme court and you cannot file a normal suit or civil suit or criminal suit. No, the terminology or the way that the judicial option that has been given, and this is, as I already told you, that this election petition is a judicial word. So it is the only way, this election petition is the only way through which, and this election petition as well, you cannot directly move to the Supreme Court, although by way of Supreme Court does have appellate authority into this election petition matter, but you cannot taking this election petition against a winning candidate, against a winning member of parliament or member of legislative assembly, you cannot move directly to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court does not have exclusive authority. The only place that you can go is to that particular concerned state high court. So if you have to challenge, suppose right now the election is scheduled in a state called Bihar, right. So if a Bihar, an MLA suppose has been declared as winner, now if you have to challenge this MLA's candidature, right, then you will have to move to this Patna High Court. If you have to challenge the candidature of a winner of a Allahabad MP, Allahabad MP or Varanasi MP, then you will have to go to where is this UP High Court? In Allahabad, right? So you will have to go to Allahabad High Court. You can't be directly moving to Delhi to Supreme Court to challenge his candidature, and this can happen, as I already told you, only by way of election petition. So the basic information regarding the election, and you will have to supplement this information with the information that we already have discussed into the election commission. And when you have supplemented these two information from these two places, you will find that the basic information regarding the election, you will have complete idea. Now with this discussion, we are moving into the second vertical, and the second vertical is about the election machinery, right? So do you remember the subcategorization into the election machinery? We do have two parts, that is administrative. First of all, we'll be discussing this administrative rather than official administrative machinery, you can put up administrative. So first of all, we'll be discussing that vertical administrative machinery, and then we'll, as part of second vertical itself, we'll be entering into this observers, right? So let us first of all, let us discuss this administrative machinery. So this vertical structure, as I already told you that we already have discussed this vertical structure earlier as well. So the role of election commissioner or chief electoral officer or DEO, or until RO, or rather until ERO, we already have discussed, right? What is this presiding officer, we'll be discussing. So let us touch these things briefly. So into this vertical administrative structure, you can see that Election Commission of India is at top. Then you do have this CEO, Chief Electoral Officer. One point that I just want to, before I forget, let me point out this one point. So these people, these administrative structures, first of all, is not mentioned into the constitution. These administrative structure has been created by the Election Commission of India, and Election Commission of India does have power that it can bring any changes into this so this administrative structure is not fixed. It's just a temporary arrangement at the convenience or at the disposal of Election Commission, or whatever addition, if there is any addition. So earlier you did the observers that we are going to discuss after this administrative machinery. So earlier, until 1960, you did not have this provision of observers. Now we do have this provision of observers. So as and when there is any need that Election Commission does feel, from security angle or from administrative angle or from any kind of arrangement angle, Election Commission of India does have power that it can create that particular institution within this vertical hierarchy, or it can subtract it. So that power, Election Commission of India. Now what is this Chief Electoral Officer? So see, we do have 36 chief electoral in every state or in every union territory. How many political entity that we do have today? So we do have 28 plus 9, right? Or 8, sorry, 28 plus 8. So in total, we do have 36 administrative or political units. So for 36 political units, we do have. So Election Commission of India, in this hierarchy, in this administrative hierarchy, sits at the top, and it just acts as a guide. In various states, at the state, the way or the place that Election Commission of India does enjoy at the national level, similar place the CEO, that is Chief Electoral Officer, does enjoy at the state or the UT level. So for every UT or for every state that we do have, you will find you will have a Chief Electoral Officer. Now who can be this Chief Electoral? So any IAS ranking official, generally, means it is not a rule, but most of the time you will notice the IAS ranking official is appointed or is nominated, right? He will be a state government employee. Any of the state government employee who happens to hold this IAS rank, he may be joint secretary, he may be additional, any kind of post that he or she may be holding into the secretary, he will be given this additional charge of Chief Electoral Officer. Now what will be the role of this Chief Electoral Officer? So the role of Chief Electoral Officer will be direction, control, on superintendence, direction, these three words, direction, control and superintendence. In regards to what he is going to direct, and who is he is, let us write this, direction, this superintendence, and the third is control. So direction, superintendence and control. And who he is going to control? So he is going to control all these things. He is going to direct and superintendent. Direct and superintendent what? So there are certain activities that even in times of, right now in Bihar you do have election, but even off election times. So right now if I take example of Haryana, so in Haryana you do not have election, has already been conducted. Or in your state as well, you would have seen that every 6 months or every 7 months, the Chief Electoral Officer of the state keep running certain kind of awareness program or certain kind of voting enrollment program, whereby few ASHA workers or few BLO, booth level officer, would be sitting into these government school and they'll be motivating people to enroll themselves. So if you have turned 18 years of age, right, they'll be announcing various kind of awareness program that they would be running to increase the enrollment into the voter list, right? And then they'll be conducting various programs just to notice that if any person has already died who was into the voter list, so that needs to be deleted. So these 18 plus people needs to be added into the voter list, into the electoral rolls. The technical word is electoral rolls. Electoral roles, right? So for this electoral role needs to be continuously revised. When I am saying revise, what does that mean? I mean, so whosoever has died, his or her name should be subtracted, and whosoever has entered into this 18 plus age, he or she should be added into this electoral roll, right? So these roles, these things will be done primarily by the BLO, booth level officials. Sitting at the top, this booth level official, I have not shown into this hierarchy. They are the base most or the bottom most into this hierarchy, booth level official, and generally these booth level officials are not dedicatedly, and neither all these officials that you can see in the hierarchy, it is not the appointees, or it is not these officials are not exactly on the payrolls of these Election Commission of India. They are, although they are working for the Election Commission of India, but they are not at the, they will be along with these roles, right? They would have been appointed. It is the state government, these people are the state government employees, and they would be getting salary from the state government itself. So similarly, booth level officials generally are the ASHA workers or Anganwadi workers, and they keep visiting even on Sunday when these kind of program is run by the state government to increase the enrollment, or by CEO. Generally these kind of awareness program or these kind of enrollment increasing program is being run. So on Sunday as well, every 6 months or every 9 months, depending, this situation will keep vary from state to state, that whether these programs are being run every 6 months or 7 months, right? So my point here is that the role of the CEO is to direct and supervise that whether these electoral rolls are being updated or not, and to exercise control over although all these things, it is not the CEO is directly, it is the BLO who is doing that, but you do have administrative hierarchy to look into all these things. So below the CEO, he'll not be talking directly to the BLO, right? He'll be seeking the report regarding the revision of electoral rolls from the DEO, district election officer. Then you do have returning officer. Primarily returning officer does not have much role into the revision of these electoral roll. The returning officer role primarily comes into the picture when election is conducted. So right now you have this election into the Bihar, so the returning officers, generally district collector who are appointed or who are given this role of the returning officer, they will be accepting nomination from the candidate who want to contest the election. So the returning officer's role generally does not remain into the picture for the full time, but all these officials continuously, except this returning official, right, all these officials keep performing their role, and all the roles of this all these officials are primarily, means in election time their role will be changed, right? They will be supervising the election, they will be actively involved into conduction of election, but in general times their primarily role is to continuously keep revising these kind of these electoral roles. Apart from that, CEO at the time of election, he also does have role that he will be coming up with various kind of awareness program, right? What is the benefit? How does your vote counts? If they have to employ any kind of celebrity, sponsored celebrity to deliver the message, inspirational message, to tell people about the importance of voting. So all these things will be done by the CEO at the state level. At the national level, of course, these kind of things will be done by the Election Commission of India, but at the state level you do have this CEO, right? So the position, if I talk about, so at the state level or at UT level, you do have this chief electoral officer. Below this, in the state you do have various districts. So at the district level you have district election officer. Then at the constituency, a district can be divided into multiple parliamentary constituency or multiple assembly constituency. In a district there may be 5 assembly constituency, 5 or 6, depending on the size of that particular district. It may be divided into 2, 3, 5, 6, depending again upon the geographical size. If I talk about the parliamentary constituency, so generally a district may have, if the size of district is small, then it may have only one parliamentary constituency, but if size of district is larger, then it may contain 2 parliamentary constituencies. So in a district, my point is that you may have more than one parliamentary constituency and more than one assembly constituency. So at the constituency level you have this returning officer, and to assist returning officer in its job, new position can be created, right? And that is of assistant returning officer. As I already told you, that these roles are given generally to the district collector or DM, again IAS officer. Then at the constituency level itself, right, into so suppose a district had what you call more than 2 parliamentary constituency, right, or 5 assembly constituency. So at the assembly level, again this post of ERO is also there. At the booth level, into the one assembly, if I talk about one assembly constituency, right, so one assembly may be divided into multiple, not maybe, it is generally divided into many of booth, right? It may have 17, 18, 20 or 25 booths, depending again upon the size of that particular constituency. So at the booth level, a particular booth will be headed by presiding officer. Now below this presiding officer, you will have various kind of booth level BLOs, booth level officer, who does their work 12 months in a year, right? So this is the administrative, vertical administrative structure, right? And as I already told you, that these people are not regular appointee of the Election Commission of India, right? They are a state government employee, right? And as additional role, they do keep performing these roles as well. Now the next point is that next point we already have discussed. These officials are not on ECI payroll, but state UT employees nominated by ECI for the seasonal job. All these 4 categories, right, they are nominated by Election Commission of India in consultation with the state government, right? When CEO, who should be appointed as CEO, that although will be decided by Election Commission of India, but he or she, means Election Commission of India, will be doing or will be appointing a person as a CEO only with the consultation with the state government. Similarly, who should be DEO, who should be RO, who should be ERO, right, that ECI will decide, but in consultation with the what you call state government. As far as this presiding officer is concerned, presiding officer will not be appointed by the ECI, it will not be appointed by the ECI, rather it will be appointed by the CEO, right? So all these 4 categorization or these 4 category of officials are appointed by the Election Commission of India in consultation with the state government, but this presiding officer is appointed not by the Election Commission of India but the Chief Electoral Officer. So I hope the roles you will have clarity on. This point you will have clarity on, that it is not the ECI who is paying them salary, but the salary to all these people is being paid by the respective state governments, right? So I hope the administrative structures you will have clarity on, right? All these things that we have discussed, all these things you can discuss or you can read into this textual format, the roles of all these people, electoral registration officer. Now we are into the second vertical. Into second vertical we have discussed this administrative machinery. Now let us discuss this observers. So what will be the role of these observers? So from name itself you will have clarity that the role of observer will be to observe. Observe what? Observe the conduct of election. Why they are going to observe this conduct of election? To ensure that the mandate of Election Commission. What is the mandate of Election Commission of India? So mandate of Election Commission of India is that free and fair election is conducted in a peaceful environment, in a non-violent environment, right? That is the mandate of election. That is what this 324, article 324 talks about in the very first article of the Election Commission. So it is the primary role of this observer to ensure that the free and fair election in a peaceful environment is conducted into the various assembly or into various parliamentary constituency. Now the question that you can raise is that, hey, you already have these administrative officials, right? You have already shown us this vertical administrative structure, and they are already going to participate into the election. The returning officer will ensure that the nomination is filed properly. Now this ERO, presiding officer, district election officer, then chief electoral officer, they are also going into the they are also going to look into these elections. So why do you need a separate structure called observers? Why are this Election Commission is going to waste resources in terms of manpower and in terms of finances on the appointment of these observers? So the answer is, look at the profile of these administrative officials. Who are these administrative officials? So these administrative officials are none but they are state government employee, and being a state government employee, there are chances that some of the state government employee, and this does practically happen as well, there are chances that the state government employees may be vulnerable for any kind of manipulation by the ruling party. Why they will fall into the trap of this manipulation by the ruling party? So see, right now if I talk about the situation of Bihar, and if whatever limited experience that I do have about the politics of Bihar, my limited experience says that in situation of this fragmented opposition, the same party, not based on the performance, but the same party which is currently ruling the Bihar, that is going to return to the power. Again, I am saying not only because of, although the ideal criteria of returning some party to the power should be the performance, but I am not getting into the merit that whether they have performed, that is for the electors to decide. But the way the opposition right now is fragmented, one of the major leaders is in jail, rightly in jail, right, because the Supreme Court has given the judgment, right. So into the corruption scandal, he is in jail. The other parties are not so strengthened. So considering all those factors, I am assuming the same party is going to return to the power. So you have same party which is in power, and the same party is returning to the power. So when official already knowing, they also do, the way I do have my own political forecast, because they are working with the state government, they do have touch, means I am completely away from the state politics of that Bihar. But since if I can assume certain things from my own limited experience, they also does have. So if they have assumption that the same party is returning to the power, so let us support their candidates, right. There may be, means I am not talking about all the officials, I am saying that okay, 98% of the people are suppose completely honest, but what about these 2%? Because the job of Election Commission of India is to conduct 100% free and fair election. It is not the 98% free and fair election you conduct and in 2% you collude, right. So it was the mandate of this Election Commission of India, and to ensure that any such kind of, to ensure that these administrative official, even if any of the administrative official is falling prey to any such kind of manipulation by the ruling party, it will be the job of observers in that case, that if they receive any kind of complaint against the returning official, against the presiding officer who are state government employee, if they receive any such complaint, right, observers receive one complaint. So these observers are ultimately going to be eyes and ears of Election Commission of India, and these kind of eyes and ears of the election, these are going to be a facilitative, observers are going to be facilitative link between this administrative machinery that we discussed and the Election Commission of India. And to make you better understand about the possible manipulation of the state government official, of the returning officer, of any officer, let me give you one view from one movie called Rajniti. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Rajniti. Here you do have Manoj Vajpayee. He was contesting the election. He has his own party, and he when the nomination, his candidate files the nomination, out of whatever seat that his party is contesting, 17 of his nomination are cancelled, right. This nomination, how these and on what ground this nomination can be cancelled, right, I'll let you know. But many a times you will notice, and these things happens for these nomination cancellation does happen for real. Delhi Assembly election 2020 411 nomination rejected, and these kind of, and out of 411 nomination, I can guarantee you that at least 10% of the nomination would have been cancelled by various returning officials for the political reason. Although there is no reason that the returning official should be politically motivated, but because the same inducement or same kind of greed, and it is here that the role of observer. So if there is any valid claim from the opposition party, if opposition party want to claim that why these 17 seats or why any kind of cancellation of a nomination happened, right, the grounds are completely invalid, then it is in this case that the observers, besides observer having many other roles that we'll be discussing right now, I'm just giving you an idea. So besides other role that these observers will be performing, the role of observer primarily is not primarily, one of the role is that they will be looking into any kind of claim that the opposition. So the point is that the role of observer is to maintain or to conduct this, to ensure that the free and fair election is conducted. Whatever role that this election commission, whatever mandate that the election commission had, the mandate or the fulfillment of that mandate will be happening by these observers. These observers are appointed by the Election Commission of India, and these observers are going to be nothing but they are going to act as a facilitative link between the Election Commission of India and these administrative official, right, appointed by Election Commission of India, going to be facilitative link between Election Commission of India and the election machinery, right, this election machinery I am talking about, for efficient functioning eyes and ears of EC in the field. It ensures that the whatever act, right, whatever provisions of RPA, Representation of People's Act 1951, whatever provision of RPA 9050, those are actually implemented if model code of conduct is in operation. What is this model code of conduct? I hope you will already have an idea. Model code of conduct is nothing but a mutually agreed, or rather provisions of model code of conduct, although is issued by Election Commission of India, but the provisions of model code of conduct is a mutual agreement between various all the political parties and Election Commission sits, and they ultimately decide that what should be the, because this does not have any legal model code of conduct, let me tell you, and this is going to be a question into any of your prelim, that if they ask any kind of question on the model code of conduct, the model code of conduct, the provisions of model code of conduct is not legally enforceable. It is just the mutually agreed provisions between the political parties, and once political parties has agreed on some mutual provision that these kind of, this should be the criteria regarding the polling, this is how we should be behaving during the campaign process, this is how processions or political rallies should be conducted. So once these political parties has agreed, there are 8 verticals into the model code of conduct. So far on those all 8 vertical, it is the Election Commission of India that is going to instruct all these political parties, right? So the provisions of model code of conduct is ultimately determined if a new model code of conduct is to be a new provision into the model code of conduct is to be added, it will be added either on the suggestion of any of the court or by the political party itself, or Election Commission of India can float the idea, and if all the political party does agree on that point, that provision can be added further into the model code of conduct of India. Now we were discussing this role of the observer. So whether the provisions of model code of conduct is being implemented in letter and spirit, that will be seen or that will be observed again by the observer, right? कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं है कि भाई this model of code of conduct, if the ruling party is violating or if their candidates is violating, returning officer or the police agency or any other agency which is responsible for looking into the implementation, looking into proper implementation of provisions of model code, they are ignoring it, and when opposition parties are violating that rule, they are aggressively implementing or they are aggressively punishing them, right? So it will be the job of this observers, that they are going to look into whether acts, rule and procedure and instruction and guidelines related to the elections are strictly and impartially complied by all parties concerned, right? So that is going to be primary role of the observer. If I talk about the other roles of the observers, why observer we already have discussed, right? Why observers, CEO, DORO, state government employees, possible vulnerability, so observers to oversee the overall functioning of administrative machinery. That is the reason why we do have observers. Then what kind of observers that we do have, we'll be discussing later, but let us first discuss the duties. What will be the duties of these observers? That they are going to oversee nomination, scrutiny and withdrawal. What is this terminology? What is this nomination, scrutiny and withdrawal of nomination? When we'll be discussing the election process into this lecture itself, you will have an idea. So it is the, see, whenever this nomination, whenever scrutiny and whenever withdrawal of application, withdrawal of nomination will be happening, all these events are videographed, right? And if there is any claim by the opposition party that suppose my nomination was cancelled during the scrutiny on invalid grounds because that nomination has been videographed, so the job of observer will be to look into that videography event, right? And to look into whether proper scrutiny or proper chances were given to the candidate from the opposing party or the candidate who has raised such claim that my candidature was cancelled or my nomination was cancelled on the invalid grounds by the returning officer due to some motivated reason. So it will be the job of this observers. Second thing would be a second job of these observers for the effective monitoring of model code of conduct. So model code of conduct, right? There are 8 verticals of the model code of conduct that let me show you. Although model code of conduct will not be discussing into, but these are the 8 verticals of the model code of conduct. How the meetings, once the model, when does this model code of conduct comes into the operation? So as soon the announcement of election has happened, right? So the announcement of Bihar election happened day before yesterday, right? So Bihar election has already, so as soon Election Commission of India through a major press conference announces the date of the election, on the same day this model MCC model code of conduct will come into the operation. Now model code of conduct, as I already told you, is a set of guidelines issued by Election Commission of India on mutually agreed provisions by the various political parties. What are these provisions? So these provisions are into these 8 verticals. All the points I will not be discussing here as part of model because as I already told you, this model code of conduct itself can be a topic for 45 minutes, 40 to 45 minutes into the various provisions of these 8 vertical we can spend. So what should be the general conduct of political parties and individual candidate, right, that has been discussed into this vertical. What should be or how the meetings, political meetings during the campaign should be conducted, when a political rally or when a political procession is being carried out, right, they should not be disturbing traffic, they should be taking permission from the state machinery, from the police, so that police could make proper arrangement for the political meetings as well. District administration permission should be taken. पोलिंग डे पे कैसा बिहेवियर कैंडिडेट्स का होना चाहिए, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का होना चाहिए, देन पोलिंग बूथ में कौन कौन से रिप्रेजेंटेटिव रहेंगे, दोज रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज शुड बी गिवन प्रॉपर आईडी कार्ड, कितने मीटर पे रहेंगे, ऑल दोज रेगुलेशन, व्हाट विल बी द ड्यूटीज ऑफ ऑब्जर्वर्स, देन व्हाट विल बी द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ पार्टी इन पावर, राइट, दे शुड नॉट बी यूजिंग एनी काइंड ऑफ स्टेट मशीनरी ड्यूरिंग द इलेक्शन, मिनिस्टर्स should not be combining his official visits. So it can't be that right now you have election in Bihar, so it can't be that home minister, although he is visiting Bihar in capacity of home minister, but then he is combining his tour with the political activities. So there are duties of these union minister or party in power that has also been regulated. Then guidelines for the election manifesto. So this is Supreme Court mandated guideline. So on these, all these 8 vertical, there are, in every vertical you do have 3 or 4 points, as I already told you that we cannot discuss this in this particular video. The learning here is that as soon model code of conduct comes into the operation, most of the political or most of the government announcement does stop. So whether this model code of conduct is being implemented in letter and spirit, right, that will be the job of observers, that will be the duty of observers, whether effective monitoring on the model code of conduct, to keep close eye on the account of expenditure of conduct. So what is this point? So this point as well we have discussed that there are, when we were discussing this political party, that is previous chapter, there we had discussed that what amount of expenditure an individual candidate can done. So there we had discussed that the MP is allowed to spend not more than 70 lakh into the large constituency. Into the small constituency, this limit has been reduced only to 54 lakhs. Into the MLA's election, there is certain limits. So if any member is exceeding that limit, so that will be again job of that expenditure, various kind of categorization that we have not discussed. So there are various kind of observers, there are general observers, there are police observers, there are expenditure observers, and then there are micro observers. These micro observers will be observing election at the booth level. Then this expenditure observer here, right, it will be the job of expenditure observer to oversee or to look into whether a particular candidate is excessively exceeding his limit that has been mentioned or that has been mandated by the Election Commission of India. Then checking randomization of software, it is talking about EVM, right? So all these things will be, all these are the duties of these observers, right? Why observers we already have discussed. So these are the subcategorization of the observers, and these are the duties of the observers. So I hope the role of observers as well you will have clarity on. So with this we are wrapping up the second vertical, and now we'll be entering into the third vertical of this chapter, and the third vertical deals with this election process. So whole of the election process is set into motion, or whole of the election process start from the announcement of date. So recently, the recent example of the announcement of date is a Bihar election, which was announced day before yesterday. So the first process is announcement of schedule, that okay, nomination, what will be what dates will be announced into this announcement of schedule. So first thing that will be announced, first date that will be announced is that when notification will be issued, that yes, we are doing the press conference today, but when the notification of the election of the next legislative assembly election, or when the next Lok Sabha election, so the notification date will be announced. Second thing that will be announced in that major press conference is that when the candidate who want to contest, right, when they can start filing this nomination. Then the third thing that will be announced in this schedule itself, the third thing that what will be the last date of filing this nomination, and the fourth thing what will be the withdrawal, कब तक आप विड्रॉ कर सकते हो, विड्रॉल ऑफ नॉमिनेशन. देन फिफ्थ थिंग in what all phases, and the most important, see, considering the vast size, considering the huge diversity, or considering that the continental size that India does have, the election cannot be conducted in whole of India into one phase on one particular day, right? That's why the election, and not even in state this practices, even in various state the election happens in various phases. So suppose a particular state like UP or particular state like Haryana does have, so Haryana can conduct election. Considering the small size, Haryana can think of, or Goa can think of, or Himachal can think of conducting election in one phase, but the continental size UP, Bihar or Rajasthan cannot think of conducting election into one go, and that's why election is often conducted into multiple phases, right? So right now the Bihar election has been divided into 3 phases, and the 3 dates will be announced, and for all those 3 phases, the date of notification, the date of nomination filing, the date of last nomination, on which date will be the last to file the nomination, withdrawal of the nomination, then the scrutiny, returning official will be performing the scrutiny of all those nominations, right? Then rejection bhi hoga kuch, right? So all these things, all these schedule, then when this counting will happen, right? When the results, so all these dates will be announced in this announcement of schedule. So once the schedule has been announced, thereafter all these dates will be announced, and thereafter you will see that the issue of notification or the nomination begins. As soon you have this announcement of schedule, the day the schedule is announced, on the same day this model code of conduct will come into operation. Now the model code of conduct, what is this model of code of conduct? We already have discussed. So as soon this model code of conduct is in operation, all the most of government announcement, right, ruling party is prohibited. The ruling party cannot make any any important policy decision, they cannot announce any kind of scheme, among other things. See, model code of conduct, as I already told you, has been divided into these 8 verticals. I already have shown you these images, right? So among other things that I did not discuss, right? So the scheme announcement, any, or the major policy announcement, any of the thing which does have possibility to induce some votes into favor of ruling party. So ruling, just to ensure a level playing field that even opposition party gets, just to ensure that a free and fair election is conducted, right? This provision has been inserted into this model code of conduct for the ruling party, and this is a guideline for the ruling party itself, that they cannot, or the government itself, that they cannot take any major policy decision, because by taking that measure, if they announce that, okay, if my government comes into the power, or from the next assembly, right, will be giving 7,000 indoles into any kind of political dose, so that might induce few lakhs of voter in their favor. So just to ensure the level playing field, this kind of provision has been inserted into the model code of conduct. And how long, means model code of conduct has come into the process as soon the schedule of announcement has been made by the and other thing that I cannot point out, once model code of conduct has been, so most of the police administration, most of, not all the police, except the routine work of the police, right, that will not be impacted, except that routine operation, most of the police operation or most of the administration come under the control, because somebody will be performing the role of a returning officer, somebody will be performing the role of this electoral returning officer, then district election officer, CEO, right, then presiding officer. So all these officials cannot be transferred. Once the model code of conduct is in operation, state government cannot transfer, cannot means on the, when we'll study the security related aspect of these elections, right, I'll let you know that how does over the administration, or over, especially over the police administration, election commission does have control. Again, I am pointing out, when I am saying that the election commission does have control over the police during the election, I am not saying that even over the routine job, right, routine job like criminal activity or the civil case that they are filing, over, not over that, but whatever. See, during the election, certain officials, this election commission will be asking from the state government and from the central government. From the central government, for the purposes of security of the election, from the Ministry of Home Affairs, you have the CAPF that comes into the picture for security, and from the state you have various police forces, armed police forces, that will come into the picture. So whatever police forces or whatever police official that has been given on deputation to Election Commission of India, those officials of the police or armed police I am talking about, over those police officials, Election Commission has complete control, whether they want to get any particular police officer transferred or whether they want to keep it. So all those things, without Election Commission's permission, any police official who is on a deputation duty of Election Commission, the state government cannot transfer, cannot send him to another district. That cannot be done, right? So when this model code of conduct will end, it started with the announcement of the schedule by the election commission as soon. So day before yesterday, the date of the Bihar election was announced, and on the same day model code of conduct came into operation. And now when this model code of conduct will come to an end, so as soon the electoral process is completed, right, when this electoral process will completed, right, I'll let you know with all these stages, right, we'll keep covering. So as soon the electoral process is completed, then this model, on that particular day, this model code of conduct will come into the operation. After that, issue of notification, nomination begins. So these 3 dates that I was talking about, right, these 3 dates will be announced. First of all, date of gazette notification. So this particular, for this particular today it is 27th of September, right? So on 1st of October 2020, this video is being recorded. So on this date, the notification or the gazette notification will start, and from this date itself, nomination of the candidate whosoever want to contest election of these MLA or this assembly, they can start filing the nomination. What will be the last date of filing of nomination? So 8th October is going to be the last date of filing the nomination. On the 9th, all these applications will be scrutinized by the returning officer. What is the meaning of scrutiny? So see, there is a format that has been prescribed into Representation of People's Act 1950, and that following that format, every candidate who aspire to contest election, he or she will have to follow that format. He will have to provide all those necessary information regarding their antecedent, previous criminal record, if there has been any, regarding their asset, regarding their nearby relatives. So all these provisions, as whatever information that has been sought in that format, right, they will have to provide. Now, if there is any missing data, if there is although in case of missing data, there is provision that the returning officer midway as well can give a notice to that particular candidate and can seek information. But on last day, if it is last day, on that particular last day, if the returning officer is finding that a particular candidate has not provided enough or adequate information, in that case, during the scrutiny, his or her candidature or her nomination can be rejected, right? So during the scrutiny of nomination, and the photo, if you remember, Delhi 2020, when 411 nominations were rejected, it is by the returning officer. Returning officers call that which all nominations should be, and out of these nominations, at times some nominations are rejected because of political reasons, although for most of there will be valid reason, because if they are being cancelled for the political, it is here that the role of observers comes into the picture. So that point we already have discussed, right? We were discussing this issue of nomination, right? Just a moment. So scrutiny up to scrutiny, after scrutiny, there would be 2 days. That would be once returning officer has announced that okay, these are validly nominated, these people who has filed the nomination, they are valid, right? They can contest the election. So out of, if there are 2 or 4 people who want to withdraw their nomination, who does not want to contest, there are 2 days that are given, and in this case, that is Bihar election, October 12, up to last date of withdrawal of candidate is up to 12th October. So on the 9th, there will be scrutiny. On the 9th evening itself, returning officer will be announcing that who are those validly nominated candidates who have filed their nomination correctly, who can contest the election. And up to 12th, the 2 days has been given, rather 3 days, that is 10th, 11th or 12th, might be 1 day, maybe public holiday. Generally it is 2 days that is given for the withdrawal of nomination. If you want, if you have change of mood, then you can withdraw your nomination. Then date of polling is for particular phase. As I already told you, this election has been divided into 3 phases, and this is about first phase. Into the second phase, all these dates will be changed, and this is a snapshot from the Indian Express. In the Indian Express itself, there were 2 another snapshot for phase 2, phase 3. So all these dates are going to change for phase 2 and phase 3, right? In phase 2, as soon the person has filed the nomination, he can start formal campaign. Although the political campaign or informal campaign, these politicians always remain in this campaign mode, but a formal campaign, as soon he has filed the nomination, he can start a formal campaign. Now the point or the keywords here is, or the point to remember here is, that who are going to be returning, who all authority can be given this post or designation of returning officer. So in districts, you will notice that it is primarily district collector or district magistrate, IAS ranking officer, who is designated by the election commission. So he is designated, district collector or district magistrate is designated by the election commission as returning officer. At times you will notice that some candidate who are ill, who are in hospital and are not in condition to physically visit these returning officer, in also act as returning officer. If a person is in jail, right, then the jailer of that particular, or the jail superintendent of that particular jail can act as what you call returning officer. Then in that case, if a person, then in that case, medical superintendent of that particular hospital can also act as returning officer. If a particular person is in jail, if he has been convicted, and despite conviction, if he happens to be eligible to contest the election, and if he intends to file the nomination, then the jail superintendent can be returning officer. If a person happens to be in foreign, he is an Indian citizen, right now he is in foreign, and if he or she wants to contest the election, in that case, ambassador or the high commissioner can act as returning officer. And after filing this nomination, all the candidates has to get oath administered, and that oath will be administered by none other than those returning officer itself. And what will be the provisions of oath, that has been mentioned into the third schedule. I am not getting into the provisions that I, me, or we, right, we take this oath, right. So I am not getting, the only information that will suffice is that in third schedule, for the MPs as well who want to, not MPs, but the candidate who want to contest this MP election or MLA election or assembly election, right, their oath or the format of oath has been mentioned into the third schedule. Thereafter, the campaign will start. There are certain campaign limits, right, campaign expenditure. So campaign expenditure for Lok Sabha election is 70 lakh, and for the smaller size constituency, it is 54 lakhs. Earlier it used to be 28 lakhs, right. Now the limit has been increased. Similarly, there are limits on the assembly election as well, and who keeps an eye on this expenditure. So you do have observers, expenditure observers that we already have seen it. So expenditure observer keeps an eye, and once the election has been finished, within 30 days of completion of election, these accounts, whatever expenditure that a particular candidate, and here one point that I could not put it into the expenditure thing, right, there is limit on how much amount candidate can spend, but there is no limit that has been mentioned into the RPA representation of, for political party, how much they are spending during the poll. There is no limit that has been mentioned or that has been limited by any law or by constitution. So political party can spend as much. Only limit that has been placed on individual candidates, right. So that was about the campaign. Scrutiny of nomination we already have discussed. Then 2 days are given for the withdrawal of nomination, right. After nomination has been filed, formal election campaign start, which spans generally for 1 to 2 weeks. In this case, 2 weeks has been given. In Bihar election, 2 weeks, and this campaign has to end before 40 hours before the election date, 2 days before the election date. Election expenditure limit keep varying, right. Observer will keep a watchful eye on the expenditure limit. Apart from observer keeping eye on expenditure, they'll be keeping eye on model code of conduct implementation and other aspects as well. Thereafter, scrutiny of application, and then withdrawal of application. So these points, thereafter, on the particular date, the election is scheduled, right, through the EVM. The election will be conducted, and through using EVM from 2003, we are continuously using EVM. Earlier, prior to this EVM, what we were using, so we were using this ballot paper. Although the usage of EVM started from 1998 itself, but continuous use or the formal use, or in all, after 2003, what happened, that in all assembly and all what you call this parliamentary election, we continuously started using this EVM, right. Here again you will have presence of all of the administrative machinery during the election, and the observers will keep a watchful eye. Election results will be announced. Who will be announcing this election results? So it is the returning officer who will be announcing the results, right. During the whole of the counting, when counting is going on, again you will have presence of observers there. You will have, during the counting, you will have presence of political representative from each party. 1 or 2 political representative from each party can be there. During when this election, the day election is to be conducted, a mock drill in the morning is conducted on 4 or 5 on every polling booth. 4 or 5 random EVM can be taken, a mock drill on this EVM, like if I am pressing this button, which means if I am pressing button for a particular party, whether vote is being counted for that particular party or it is going to other parties. So those kind of mock drills will be conducted, and if there is any malfunctioning EVM, that will be replaced, right. In between as well, there are at both level, there are certain EVM that is reserved for this kind of, in case case of any malfunction, there is this option that can be replaced with those reserved EVM, right? So all these things will be controlled, although there will be district administration, there will be election administrative machinery, but there will be observers as well. If there is any complaint, legitimate complaint of any political party from the opposition, or for that matter any candidate does have any kind of problem during the election, they can directly approach the observers. So once counting is over, the winner will be decided, a winner will be declared by the evening itself by the returning officer, although the notification or the formal notification by the election commission is going to come to these member of parliament, winner member of parliament, or what you call winner member of legislative assembly. From this formal notification from the ECI, election commission will come at much later stage, but the returning officer by the evening itself, as soon the counting is over, and if there is no contention, it might be that the counting is over, but the margin was very low, margin was like 500 or 400 vote, and if the nearest candidate, right, he is claiming any kind of recounting on a particular booth of a particular booth or two particular booth, then he can go to the observer, and if observers find the legitimate claim, then again that particular booth vote can be recounted. So if there is no claim from any of the party, then the winner will be declared by the returning officer. Generally into the smaller constituency, by 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. itself counting will be over. But if there is any political contentious constituency, in that case you will see that the counting extended even on that particular 12 a.m. or next day as well, it goes on, right? So this was all about the election procedure, right? After that announcement, and the final formal thing here is the final formal thing is about the election petition. What is this election petition? We already have discussed into the introductory section of this video. So election petition is nothing but a tool that has been given to the elector of that constituency. So one learning here is that who can file the election petition into challenging the election of a particular winner. So first, the candidate who has contested the election. Second, elector from anywhere? No, elector from only that particular constituency. If you are an elector in the constituency on for which or the winner of which constituency you are going to contest, right, then only it can't be that you are elected somewhere into the Allahabad constituency and you are contesting or you are challenging election of a Jaipur member of parliament's winner, right? So that cannot happen. You need to be the elector of that particular constituency. So with this, election process will be over, and with this, no, we are not wrapping up this particular video, right? There are certain other things. Model code of conduct we already have discussed. Security during the election, so it is very essential for free and the peaceful conduct of the election. Security is very important aspect, and it is again duty of Election Commission of India. So Election Commission of India, as I already told you, does take of support of police administration, armed police administration generally of the state, and CAPF as well, right? From the center it does take CAPF, help of CAPF as well. So security plan in states during the election is prepared by CEO, Chief Electoral Officer, in consultation. Security vulnerability plan will be prepared with the state government, with the district election officer, right? How much, if there is security affected area anywhere in J&K or in Northeast or in any of left wing impacted state like Odisha or Jharkhand or certain district of Jharkhand, although Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh now they are turning to be the peaceful, but there may be certain security sensitive districts like Bastar. So in those kind of Malkangiri in Odisha, in those kind of district, you will often notice that left wing groups does have presence. So here additional troops can be called, and if there is any security sensitive area, you will notice that the election commission, instead of calling the deploying the CAPF at the regular time, they call these kind of forces at very early stage, just to ensure that the people does have faith. When forces will arrive, people will have faith that okay, now we can exercise vote in a free environment, right? There will be no fear. And for area domination as well, to restore faith of the people into the election machinery for the area domination, again CAPF is called, right? So they will be conducting various, if there is communally sensitive area, if there has been communal clashes in recent past in any particular district, and just immediately after that election is to be conducted, again you will need these kind of neutral force. Why CAPF? Why not you can trust the police? So because the police does remain in control of the executive or the government of that particular state, and that's why. And the police does not have that capacity as well. If there is security sensitive area, like if they have to fight with the left wing, with the Mayas, they cannot. If there is any communal mistrust, right, the way we have in Delhi, right, there is mistrust towards the police, so you cannot rely, and that's why there is some neutral force that you would be needing. There would be some professional force that election commission would be needing, and it is the CAPF which is generally called it, which does have capacity as well, which can enjoy trust among the people as well, right? That's why CAPF along with the police. And other security aspect, if I talk about, so strong room is nothing, it is the place where after the election has been conducted for few days, it is after 3 or 4 days, once election has been completed of all the phases, it is only after that that the election will be the votes will be counted. So the place where these EVMs are placed, that particular place or that particular area or that particular storage is called strong room. Now that strong room is the protection of that strong room again is very important aspect or very important duty of the election commission. And you will notice that whichever building that this EVM has been placed, it will be having 3 layered security. The innermost layer will be protected by not by that particular state but by the CAPF, and then other 2 layers will be protected by the police forces. So that was about the security aspect of the election commission. If I talk about the election cost aspect, so who does bear cost of the election? So if there is parliamentary election, so it is center that is going to bear the cost. It is not the election commission does not have their own funds, right? So in case of if there is parliamentary election, general election to the Lok Sabha, then union government is going to pay the cost. If there is state government election or the assembly election, in that case whole of the cost will be borne by the state government. And if there is any chance that Lok Sabha election has been combined with a state legislature election, so in that case combinedly the cost will be paid by both union government and the state government. So this was about the cost. So with this we are wrapping up this lecture with the 3 MCQ, the first MCQ, second MCQ and the third MCQ. So with this we are wrapping up this lecture, and the next lecture will be on election laws, that is RPA 9050 and RPA 9051. So till then, bye bye.